It's deadline day for soldiers and airmen to get vaccinated against COVID-19. It is happening in the midst of a recruiting crisis across the military. WCCO's Jonah Kaplan reports on what this means for the Minnesota National Guard and its readiness in the future.
Uncle Sam's wanted you to enlist for a long time, to be all you can be and turn an army strong into an army of one. Uncle Sam, though, has never had to work this hard to get America's attention.
We are in a war for talent.
That's the U.S. Army Chief of Staff, General James McConville, pitching the House Armed Services Committee for an extra nearly $4 billion in taxpayer money, your money, to give military members a raise and extra housing allowance. The general also explaining that 83% of people that come into the military already have a family member in the military, and this is not supposed to be a family business.
I believe that the Army and a lot of other services should be an American family business. And so we've got to get more access. We've got to show people the value of serving their country. And again, I'm not doing a commercial, but I think there's a lot of value for working class kids like me that came in the Army. I signed all my kids up, and I'd like to see everyone else do the same.
The Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, Coast Guard, Space Force, they all need people to sign up. But it's only the Space Force, the youngest and smallest branch, that's meeting its recruiting goals for this fiscal year. The Army specifically, dropping its target by 12,000, as much as 20% of its usual class of 60 to 70,000 enlistments.
If you don't have a steady supply of those young people coming into the military, then sooner or later it's going to decrease your readiness.
CBS News Pentagon correspondent David Martin explaining senior military officials are warning this is the toughest recruiting year ever since the U.S. military became an all-volunteer professional military in 1973.
It's not just shooting a rifle. It's you need mechanics to make the tanks and run and the planes fly. You need computer nerds these days just to make everything work, since everything is networked. The U.S. military that went to war in Kuwait in 1990 and 91, that went to war in Afghanistan in 2001 and went to war in Iraq in 2003, they were obviously a very high quality military. Last year, that withdrawal from Afghanistan was a debacle. But the fact is that the military went from a standing start and pulled off the largest airlift in history. So it can still get things done, but it's the long-term trends that are concerning.
National defense, national security, those, of course, national issues. But part of what makes the military great is how it represents all 50 individual states and other U.S. territories. Plus, what makes the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan unique is how it highlighted the reliance of the U.S. on state National Guards, including here in Minnesota. And those National Guards not immune to this recruiting crisis. Since 2001, the Army calling up more than 25,000 Minnesota National Guard soldiers and airmen to deploy in 33 countries. And now, more than 20 years after 9/11, recruiters are noticing a changing societal battlefield in the homeland.
I think there was more awareness of what the military did post 9/11 for that first 10 or 15 years after that. And then obviously that dissipates, I think, over time. And there's just not, the military isn't as much in the public purview as it was at that point. The more people that we can show what we do and what we're about, the more people that are going to take interest.
According to officials, the Guard's Recruitment and Retention Battalion unable to do that as well starting in March 2020, the COVID-19 pandemic, and the results showing its impact, enlisting just above 80% of its recruiting goals over the past 2 years.
Largely, recruiting is about face-to-face communication and sitting down there and really spreading your message to somebody and letting them know what your organization's all about. When social distancing came about, it made it hard to get in front of people. Access was limited to certain events were canceled, access to schools was limited. So that made it difficult for us to really get out there in front of people and deliver our message.
That message also muted in part by competition from the private sector, where companies for the first time matching, even exceeding, the military's once unique benefits of tuition assistance and signing bonuses. So the demand for talent already shrinking the pool, and that's before taking into account American youth struggles with obesity, mental health, and education. According to Pentagon estimates, just 23% of Americans ages 17 to 24 could meet the military's eligibility requirements.
We talk about aptitude, we talk about physical, we talk about medical, we talk about mental, and just across all those boards, the pool of eligible people seems to be shrinking a little bit.
On a state level, the Guard maintaining its current enlistment offers and eligibility requirements, but stepping up its presence at high schools, fairs, and ball games. Nationally, many branches giving away record bonuses of up to $50,000. They're even offering re-enlistment bonuses to reduce turnover. The Army, meanwhile, for the first time in decades, dropping its requirement for a high school diploma or GED. That's good at least till the end of the fiscal year. So a shallow pool, a deep impact on the nation's future. And the only thing predictable is the world's unpredictability.
We are at a turning point in what our national defense is all about. And of course, you can argue that the greatest threat to our national defense was not anything that happened overseas. It was January 6, 2021 in the nation's capital.
There's one other piece to this puzzle that we've left out, and that is COVID-19 vaccinations. On June 30th, the National Guard imposing its deadline for guardsmen, for soldiers, for airmen to be vaccinated. And in Minnesota, 95% have gotten the shots. But that other 5%, unless they're applying for some religious or medical exemption, according to a spokeswoman, they will no longer be able to participate in several activities, including drills. But they will not be involuntarily discharged. Jonah Kaplan, CBS News, Minnesota.
Keep watching CBS News Minnesota for continuing coverage.